Excuse me, sir. Would you like another hot take?
Yeah, definitely. Keep them coming.
Okay, let's get into our hot takes. First up, Tom Thibodeau, New York Knicks. As we know, he loves having tough defensive teams, and no one embodies that better than Julius Randle. But the game was a blowout, and he had him out there, and now he's going to be out for a few weeks with one of his star players. And this is all because Thibodeau just does not know when to let players rest. So I think Thibodeau is a great coach. He definitely will get teams to the playoffs, but I think him and the way he always pushes teams will, especially with this Knicks teams, will cost them making a conference final. And that's something that, the Knicks have been desperate getting to a conference final or an NBA finals. And I just hope Thibodeau will learn. At this point, doesn't look like it, but we will see. Next up, the Texas Rangers. They need to stop penny pinching. I get it. They have this whole TV contract thing going on, but you have a billionaire owner. Billionaire owner. So you guys need to open up your wallet and go out there and get what you need. You're losing a lot of key players that was on your championship team. And finally, I think that the decision they made last year, picking DeGrom over Verlander, will start to bite them this year. Verlander's just so much more durable. I get it. DeGrom might have that higher ceiling at this point, but there's a reason why no one else touched that number, and I think that'll bite the Rangers a little bit this season. Finally, sticking with the Texas stuff, I think from everything I'm seeing in the tea leaves, and next time the Texas Congress gets together, they're going to pass and allow casinos, finally, so all the money won't be going to Oklahoma and other places. The Sands Corporation, they now own the majority of the Mavericks, and a place like that does not come in and spend billions of dollars unless they have guarantees that they're going to be able to build their casinos and make their mark here in Texas. So for everyone around here, get ready, because it sounds like casinos will be coming here.
I've got some post-conference championship game hot takes for you guys. Lamar Jackson will never win a Super Bowl. He's going to end up another Dan Marino, someone who is a great quarterback but just never won the big game. I mean, come on, let's be real. The guy is MVP caliber, and when it's all said and done, I think he will end up in the Hall of Fame. There's no denying the talent and skill he possesses, but let's just take a look at the AFC. It's hard stepping through these playoffs against the likes of Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, a healthy Joe Burrow. I mean, even CJ Stroud burst onto the scene out of nowhere. What I'm trying to say is, it's tough getting to a conference championship game, let alone a Super Bowl, especially going up against that many cream of the crop quarterbacks. One of my other hot takes is the Detroit Lions will be back in the NFC Championship game next season. I do think it'll be against the Niners again. But let's put it this way. Goff, he's no stranger to leading a team deep into the playoffs. He's already been to the Super Bowl with the Rams. They have studs catching the ball with Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's in a contract year, and Sam Laporta, who will be in his second season after just straight dominating this year out of the tight end position. Add in their two stud running backs, David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, they're a nightmare for any defense to try to figure out. The big question mark will be Detroit's defense. The argument can be made, if they stay healthy on that side of the ball, they'll have a lot more consistent defense for another title run. We'll see.
These are my hot takes for the week. Dan Campbell has to own the Lions' loss. Dan Campbell's been a great coach this season, and I don't want to sound like a hater, but at the end of the day, he has to own the meltdown versus the 49ers. When you have a chance to go up by another score in an NFL game, you have to take it. The Lions had that opportunity. They were facing a reasonable field goal on fourth down where they could have won up by 17 points, but instead they decided to go for it. In this situation, you just have to go up another score. It's not going to do you much good to be up by 21 versus 17 because you're still only up 3 scores anyway. And I just think that was a big mistake that created a big momentum shift in the game. And you can't overstate a momentum shift on the road in a playoff game versus the best team in the league, most likely. And also, you just can't burn that timeout at the end of the game to force yourself into a situation where you have to recover an onside kick to win. I know Dan Campbell wants to be aggressive, but he got over-aggressive in this one, and it cost his team the game. The Ravens' offensive game plan was terrible. All season, you've ran the ball well. You have the number 1 rush offense, and the Chiefs had a weak run defense. They were giving up 4.5 yards per carry this season, and they should have handed the ball off to Gus Edwards and Justice Hill a lot in this game. And instead, they only handed it off 6 times to their running backs. They should have had design runs for Lamar Jackson. They should have had zone reads in this game, and they did not do it. They threw the ball 37 times. 37 times versus one of the best pass defenses in the league. It makes no sense, and it was just an absolutely terrible offensive game plan by Baltimore. Baker Mayfield should go to the Steelers. This probably won't happen, and I can't really see a scenario where Tampa's going to let Baker Mayfield get away. But it would be a lot of fun to see Mayfield on the Steelers and what he could do with that good running game and those nice weapons around him like George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, and Pat Freiermuth. This would definitely intensify the rivalry between the Steelers and the Browns and make for some memorable AFC North games. If the Steelers can pull this off, I think it cements them as a playoff team. But as it stands, if they can't figure out the QB position, I think they're going to be cemented in the basement of the AFC North going forward.
My first hot take is that Jahmyr Gibbs should not have had that carry on the goal line for Detroit where he fumbled. Should have just been given to David Montgomery. I do believe that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be a superstar in the league, and he'll probably be a first-round pick in fantasy next year. But in the playoffs, when everything's on the line, you don't give the ball to the rookie running back on the goal line when you have David Montgomery. That's almost as bad as when the Seahawks threw the ball and they had Marshawn Lynch. You don't do that. It's bad coaching. It doesn't matter how tricky you're trying to be or disguise the actual play call. What it mattered more of who you were giving the ball to in that scenario. And I really do think it cost them the game. 27-point turnaround after that. So my next hot take is that Lamar Jackson is an MVP, but the cast around him on offense is not. I mean, Gus Edwards and Justice Hill at running back. I know that Lamar Jackson practically is their running back, but if he had a better, supporting running back, maybe they would have been able to have more success all around on offense. His receivers are fine. He's got Andrews and Likely at tight end. Andrews was back, and Zay Flowers looks to be the real deal. And it's pretty much nothing behind him because Odell Beckham's a shell of his former self, and Rashad Bateman is not there. I don't think he's going to get there. So he just didn't have the offense he needed to keep up with Patrick Mahomes. Their defense was elite, but better luck next year, Ravens. My final hot take, receiver Jameson Williams on the Lions. He really showed off that speed of his on that handoff, that 40-yard touchdown handoff early in the Lions 49ers game. And I think he will be on the up and up next year with a lot of big plays, and he will become a fantasy superstar. Those are my hot takes. Hope you enjoy.
This poker hand is at WinStar Casino. We're playing 1-2. We have a bunch of limpers. It limps all the way to me. I'm in the big line. I look at 7-4 offsuit, garbage hand, and I check, and we go 7 ways to a flop. The flop comes the 5 of spades, the 3 of diamonds, the 10 of hearts. I check, and it checks a round. The turn is a 2 of diamonds. Now we have that open-ended straight, and there's a flush draw out there, so I bet $13 to build the pot and thin the field out a little bit and mill position and the button call. The river is a 6 of spades. We're loving it. I bet $28. The middle position folds. Now the button raises me to 70. I think for a few seconds because I got the absolute nuts, and I shove all in, and this player snap calls me. I shove the nuts, and they flash a random 4, which kind of brings me to my point about this hand, which is when the button re-raised me, it really shouldn't have been doing that. Didn't have the nuts. There's a hand that beats it. I get it. A lot of times you might get someone that mistakenly folds because they think you have a nut hand, but I think it's just a huge mistake. They should just call thinking of the chop and let it go unless you have the absolute nuts. And it was a huge mistake on their part. So don't be like that player. If you're 4 straight and there's something that can be the bigger, whether it's a flush, because there's something on the board, or straight like this one because I had the 7 for the higher end and the nuts, just call. There's no point in that, and it costs in a stack. Great for me, but terrible play. So just a little bit of advice.
This is a poker hand I played at Shuffle 512 in Austin, Texas. So there was one limper to me, and I raised with 7-6 of clubs on the button to $15. The big blind and the limper called, and we go off to a flop, which comes 5-7-8 with one club. So we flop a pair, an open ender, and a backdoor flush draw. That's one of the best flops our hands can ask for. So when it checks to me, I go for a small C bet at $15. Most of my hands will want to check here, but this is one of the hands on this board where I'm going to want to go for a bet, since we can benefit from getting a little bit of protection, and we can also improve in a lot of ways on future streets. Both players make the call and we go to the turn, which comes the 7 of diamonds. We make a disguised trips and should have the best hand here almost all the time. So when it checks to me, I bet $40, which I think is a mistake. I should be going a lot bigger, like $75 or even $100, but I'd go 40 and only the big blind calls. The river comes the queen of diamonds, and now at this point he leads for $60, and I think the best option here is going to be just to call, since if he's bluffing he probably can't call, since most of his bluffs are going to be missed flush draws, and if he only calls when he's beating us, then it's not going to be a good raise, even though we do have a strong hand here. So I call, show him my hand, and we're good, and drag a nice pot. Discussing the NFL draft, Adonai Mitchell of Texas is a receiver who I really like for the NFL draft this season. He's 6'4" and is coming off an 11 touchdown season for the Longhorns. He has elite speed and is able to separate from defenders with good cuts, great routes, and physicality as well. And I think his skill set will translate very well to the NFL, and he'll be a steal for some team in the late first round or in the second round if he slips there. Also, I'm very excited about Bucky Irving, the running back from Oregon. He is a very willing runner. He's willing to get physical, and he can break a lot of tackles even as an undersized back. He has a great ability in the receiving game as well, and when he gets in space, he can make defenders miss with his jukes and spin moves, and he can also bounce off of them. His game reminds me a little bit of Jalen Warren, but even more explosive. I think he's going to make for a heck of a pro.
You want that plastic working come Miller time?
You know, I can foresee a lot of possible outcomes to this thing, and not a single one of them involves Miller time.
PMA. Positive mental attitude.
Welcome to Miller Time. I'm Kevin Miller, and on today's episode, I am going to review with you guys the 2023 yards per out run by wide receivers and go over the leaderboard. Now, most of you are probably familiar, but for those of you that aren't, yards per out run, or abbreviated as YPRR, is a more advanced stat that they came up with maybe 5 or 10 years ago to kind of track wide receivers and how talented they are in a different way, not yards or catches. And there's no surprise when looking at this board that number 1 was Tyreek Hill. He had just a crazy year, but what is surprising is that if you look, he was almost a full yard ahead of every single receiver besides 4 guys in the entire league. That's insane, and as good as he is, I don't think that gap is, or that number is sustainable next year. Almost 4 yards per out run. That's just like elite of elite, best of all time type of numbers, and Tyreek is that player, but I still think he has a little bit of a regression next season. And surprisingly enough, his teammate Jalen Waddle still cracked the top 10, even though he was kind of a ghost this season, and it feels weird just saying his name because he wasn't really talked about at all year. Another surprising name on this list is number 2, Nico Collins. What a good year by Nico Collins. It looks like he's turning into a stud. I have some concern when Tank Dell comes back that he does play the 1B to Tank Dell's 1A, but there are no guarantees, and Tank Dell could prove to be very fragile next year and kind of not ever put together a full healthy season. Brandon Ayuk at number 3 finally turned in a very, very elite season, and he's kind of cemented himself as a top 10 receiver in the league in my mind. And lastly, I'll point out the rookies on this list. Rashee Rice had a great year, second best rookie year from a receiver, only to be topped by who? My man, number 17, Puka Nacua. What a crazy year it was. You really did look the part, and I'm excited to see what your future has in store in the NFL. But these guys are your leaders in 2023 on yards per out run. Take a look at this stat and some other advanced metrics, and you'll find some fun ways to grade different players. That's my tips for you guys.
Soccer hooligans.
Welcome back to the Degenerate Gambling Life's Added Minutes. I'm Jordan Tennis, and here's what we got for you guys today on this edition. The FA Cup magic is in full effect. The competition that started with 729 clubs continues to dwindle, while National League South club Maidstone United keeps pushing on. With their big win over championship side Ipswich Town, they will continue to be the lowest ranked club when fourth round action commences in late February. But just how low ranked are they on the footballing pyramid in England? Let me try to use an American sport to help you guys understand. Let's take Major League Baseball and say that they are the equivalent to the Premier League in England, which is the top flight in England. Then you can match up AAA, AA, and Single A with Football League Championship, Football League 1, and Football League 2. Then you go a step below what would be Single A, and you'd be at the English equivalent, which is the National League. Now you got to go to the sixth tier, which is one below that, and you have two parallel leagues that are running side by side. You have the National League North and the National League South. The National League South, that's where you're going to find Maidstone playing week in and week out. And to think how far down that is just in England, that doesn't take into account the other top leagues in Europe or the other leagues around the world. This is almost like your rec basketball team going into a tournament with NBA and G League teams, and here you are continuing to show out week after week after week. Crazy to think about their progress in the world's oldest tournament. We'll keep an eye on their fourth round matchup and hope the magic can continue. Elsewhere in England, there's unfortunate news if you're a Liverpool supporter, as manager Jurgen Klopp has announced he will leave the club at the conclusion of the season. The club higher-ups were notified back in November about his decision so they could start planning and seeing what they want to do, but the players and rest of the staff were informed this past Friday morning before training, and later that day, a video message from Klopp was released to the public. In the video message, Klopp says, "I am, how can I say it, running out of energy. I have no problem now, obviously. I'm absolutely fine now. I know that I cannot do the job again and again and again. After the years we spent together and after all the things we went through together, the least I owe you is the truth, and that is the truth." Klopp will leave Liverpool after 8 seasons, having left an impact on the club that hasn't been seen in decades, winning Europe's biggest prize, the Champions League, in 2018-2019, and he followed that up next season when he helped end Liverpool's 30-year drought for a league title. Other notable trophies include the 2021-22 League and FA Cup double. No one knows who is in line to be his successor, and Klopp has said he does not want to be involved in that decision. One thing is for sure, Premier League managers can breathe easier. As Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola said about news of Jurgen's impending exit, "I will sleep better." We guys hope you guys had a good week, and we'll catch you next time.
Okay, let's dive into a little bit of fantasy basketball. First up, we have Vince Williams. He's on the Memphis Grizzlies. He is a shooting guard and small forward. Love when they give you that shooting guard and small forward player flexibility. He's been player 65 the last month. The last 2 weeks, player 16. Player 16. He's available in 33% of the league, so snap him up. He's going to give you some really good stats. 19 points a game, 3 3-pointers made, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, and 1 block. Those are definitely some great counting stats, and if he even just maintains player 65, that will be fantastic. Next up, we have Paul Reed. He's on the Philadelphia 76ers. He gives you power forward and center, which means we're going to be looking at rebounds. He's been player 43 the last 2 weeks, and for the last month, he's been a top 100 player. He's available in 80% of leagues, so this is someone that's sneaky out there if you've been needing a big guy on your team. Now, he's going to give you 15 points. He even chips in with 1 3-pointer made. Love when the big guys give you those 3-pointers. 9 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals from the big guy, and 1 block. Those are really good numbers for a big guy that gives you power forward and center position flexibility. Hopefully these help you for this next week in fantasy basketball.
As a reminder to my fellow degenerates, we are going to be in Vegas this month from the 8th to the 11th. We're going to be doing a meetup game on Thursday the 8th at Mandalay Bay at 6 p.m. 1-2 poker, nothing too crazy. And we're going to be doing the same at Caesars on the 9th at 1 p.m. if you can't make it to the first one. We're going to have free merch. It's going to be a good time. Come talk to us about fantasy sports and poker, and it should be a really good atmosphere. Also, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe because it really helps the channel. And if you have any comments, leave them down in the comment section and we'll be happy to get back to you.